Chef. This is a Cali BBQ Media production. We are live streaming today on LinkedIn, on YouTube, on Facebook. Thank you guys for paying attention to this show. We've been doing it for 7 years now, and we had this crazy idea to turn our barbecue restaurants in San Diego into a media company, and now we produce multiple shows. But this is the one that we started with. This is the essence, our deep work, digital hospitality. Every business needs to be digital first, and every business is in the hospitality business, whether they know it or not. I'm really excited today. We have Sergio Pérez. He is the SVP, head of marketing at Emmy Squared Pizza, 29 locations, Detroit style pizza chain. He comes highly recommended from one of our Rising Tide leaders, Justin Ulrich. Justin became a close friend when he told me he had this crazy idea as a marketer to start a podcast. He asked me as many questions as possible. Hopefully I answered them, but I'm so proud of the work that Justin and his team are doing. But Sergio, he doesn't recommend often. So when he does, you got to come and bring the value, because he said you were an incredible leader and that I had to have you on the show. So welcome.
Thank you, Sean. I appreciate you having me to talk all things marketing, Detroit style pizza, Emmy, and big shout out to Justin. To your point, he's the ultimate connector of people passionate about the industry and always looking to find ways to give back and add value to the industry. And so, super pumped to be talking to you today. And no pressure, I guess, from Justin.
So today's St. Patrick's Day. We're live streaming on St. Patty's Day. We started having a conversation before we hit record, and Sergio was starting to telling me about green pizza and different things that he had tried as a marketer. I said, we got to save this so that the audience can learn, because I think one of our jobs as people in the restaurant space, marketing space, technology space, we try everything, and some things work and a lot of things don't. So let's start with St. Patrick's Day at Emmy Squared Pizza during your tenure.
Yeah, so I'll say we kept it a little bit low key as it relates to St. Patrick's Day. In the past, the brand has tried everything from St. Patrick's themed cocktails, green beer, a take on an Irish pizza, and the headline is not certainly a relevant holiday for our consumers. And so, for me, the big insight here, if you will, is that which is like stay close to your consumers and not try too hard to fit in or be a part of a conversation. To your point, there's these social holidays that go out every year, and it's like national this, national that. And one of my biggest pet peeves in the industry is when someone says, "Come celebrate National Fried Chicken Day with us." If that's something people are actually celebrating and marking in their calendars. And so for me, it's about how do you make sure that you stay true to who your audience is? How do you play in the social conversations that are relevant to your brand and the consumer? Because when you don't, you look a little bit off, and consumers clearly and fast identify and call BS when you're trying too hard to be something you're not. And so for us, St. Patrick's, we'll celebrate personally, but not as a brand, just because we haven't seen a whole lot of traction there in previous years.
What is restaurant marketing?
Yeah, I always define it clearly for operations. So look, our role is to send invitations out to consumers and
Oh,
operations.
hold on. We have one guest.
Hey,
Are you going to be a guest on the podcast? You got to come and say hi. Okay, come say hi.
hello, hello.
Hi,
You say
Hi,
hi.
I'm Sergio. What's your name?
Mila.
Mila, good to see you. That's a great shirt. You're celebrating today?
Celebrating St. Patrick's Day. Okay,
Nice.
go hang out with your
Daddy,
brother.
can I have a snack?
Can you have? I don't know, Sergio. Can she have a snack?
I think the answer
We're
is
gonna
yes,
pull.
only if it's a healthy snack,
If
though.
it's a healthy snack. Okay, healthy
Yeah.
snack approved.
Yeah.
Bye. Thank you for being a guest on today's show.
There you go.
There it
Kids
is.
are always a joy.
Yes. So
Yeah,
you're sharing the secrets of restaurant marketing.
Yeah, so I clearly define it internally for our folks. Look, our role as marketers is to generate demand, or to put more simply, is send invitations to customers to come to our restaurants. And operations role is to host a great party, make sure people feel taken care of, make sure that they feel like they've had a memorable experience. But again, for me, the ultimate role as a restaurant marketer is to generate demand, whether that is driving traffic, whether that is acquiring users to your app or your eClub database, whether that is driving traffic to a specific landing page or website. It's all about generating demand. And so for me, that's the way I've always felt or thought about the role as a marketer in the industry.
Can you share a story of when you succeeded as a restaurant marketer? A promotion you ran, something where the things that you believed, because we
Yeah.
have deep conviction as marketers, but
Yeah.
until you see it into fruition, you're like, thank goodness thank goodness I was right.
Yeah, it worked out. I would say I'll take you to my most recent work at Bojangles, the famous chicken and biscuits chain out of North Carolina. And when I joined the company in December 2020, we had a pretty big ask, which was to lead the most aggressive digital transformation for the 45-year-old brand. And so when I got there, there was a broken down website that had been around for about 7 years. There was no real CRM loyalty program. There's about 300,000 users in the database, and call it about $18 million in digital sales at the time when I got there. And so one of my first roles was to help define the roadmap, find what the tech stack was, the right strategies to communicate to consumers, the right strategies to help adopt that technology across the entire brand. And 4 years later, we delivered a little bit over $100 million in revenue. We
Wow.
successfully transformed the brand in terms of web app, consumer engagement, consumer analytics. We leveraged all those pieces to be able to deliver the right message at the right time to the consumer, to help maximize conversion, to help drive customer lifetime value. And so for me, that was one of probably my proudest accomplishments as a professional, because we took something that was, rather small and untouched and unloved, and we built it into a meaningful portion of the business for the brand through, strategy, project planning, adoption, good marketing, good creative, good media, kind of all the things that make up a good marketing plan were a part of this. And the beauty from a digital perspective is that we can measure, right? And we can identify this action resulted in X. And so we were able to clearly tell the story of, here's what we invested, here's what we did, here's what we saw from a consumer standpoint. And so for me, that was, yeah, again, one of the highlights of my career in terms of being able to show what we actually did to drive the business.
For me, it's really fascinating to hear that story because we talk often on this show about the 4 C's: content, commerce, communication, and community. And when you think about how technology plays a part in restaurants, specifically from an operational standpoint to a digital standpoint to a storytelling to a community to a CRM, we live in such a crazy, exciting time, but it's a challenging time because before you would think that there would be somebody that would be responsible for technology, the chief technology officer. Yet marketers and salespeople and we all have to have a conversation.
Right.
If we all don't have a conversation about what's happening inside the 4 walls and then what's actually happening in the digital experience, there's going to be failure. And you have to build the foundation from the beginning, having difficult conversations to make sure that the technology is all working together.
For sure. And what's often not talked about is sort of the life cycle of the technology as it relates to who owns what and when,
Yep.
right? And so, for example, when you're starting a new tech project, whether that is launching a new website or building online ordering, like a lot of brands did over the pandemic, it starts very heavy IT, right? Like they own it, they've got to connect the pipes, they got to make sure there's integrations with POS providers and all kinds of other technology providers. Then it sort of, the baton shifts over to marketing, right? To then, how do you get this in front of consumers? How do you make sure that they're leveraging it from a user experience
Yep.
standpoint, creative touch points, you name it? And then there's sort of the optimization and ongoing support from an ops perspective to make sure that they can actually, from an employee perspective, know how to use the new technology, that they're, to effectively execute there. And so it's not just about organizing and having a strong foundation, but also identifying when do you start and when do you stop, and who
Yeah.
owns what through that process. Because based on the life cycle of the technology, it might require a different skill set or ownership group, from a team standpoint.
Can you share the story of Emmy Squared Pizza?
Yeah, it's a great yet short story. So started in Brooklyn in 2016, and as a restaurant called Emily in Clinton Hill. The headline there is, Emmy was trying to break through from a pizza perspective in New York, and in Brooklyn, one of the best places that you can find for culinary and food. It's sort of the mecca of the best food in the country. And so they spun it off to a concept called Emmy Squared Pizza, specializing in Detroit style pizza. We've got award-winning burgers and elevated cocktails. And part of what makes Emmy, there's lots of things that make Emmy special, but I'll give you a couple of the headlines that get me excited about the brand. One is our love for high quality ingredients and process. And I'll get into a little bit of this, not just saying it to say it, but we honor the tradition of Detroit style pizza. We started in, using blue steel pans like automotive workers started in Detroit. That's what makes Detroit style pizza special. That frico crust around that pizza. We use the best flour you can buy in the country. We use Esso pepperoni, which is the best pepperoni you can buy. One of our most famous pizzas, the Colony Pizza, which is red sauce, cheese, crispy pepperonis, pickled jalapenos, and honey as a drizzle. We could take a shortcut of like buying jalapenos and from a can and put them in a pizza. We actually dice jalapenos every day. We brine them and pickle them every day. And so we believe that that extra love, that extra elbow grease, if you will, gives the food a better taste and just an overall larger or better quality. Our burgers are, again, award-winning. Everything from the Today Show to USA Today and Eater, Infatuation have rated our burger one of the best in the country. And then we have, again, a relaxed atmosphere, with our, elevated cocktails, everything. We make some of our syrups in-house every day. And so, again, our commitment to quality remains quite high. Another thing that's interesting and great about Emmy is the local component of our brand. Every restaurant is different. We don't take sort of a template of what a restaurant should look like. We usually operate and take over second generation spaces, and we make them feel part of the community. So if you go to Brooklyn, that restaurant will be very different than it will be here in Charlotte. That will be very different in LA. And that is because we want to make sure that we are, again, part of a community. We're seen as a neighborhood restaurant, not a chain. And so one of our founding sort of spirits is we want to be an anti-chain chain where you feel like you're at a neighborhood spot. That, of course, is supported by a restaurant support center, but we want to make sure that consumers feel that from a food, hospitality, and experience standpoint, where your neighborhood spot, almost like a modern version of Cheers, where like people know your name. You can come in, whether it's for a date, for just a quick lunch, or special occasion. And so again, I would encapsulate Emmy Squared Pizza by out of this world foods, best in class service, and then great local community aspect to how we do business.
Are all the stores company owned, or are any of them franchised?
All company owned. We've got a few licensing agreements, but majority of them are company owned.
How did you grow an Instagram account to 134,000 followers?
I got to give credit to the folks who came before me, but that is driven by, I think, cultural relevance, cult-like following in New York. I mean, when Emmy started in 2016, one of the hardest tables to get in Brooklyn, lines would be out the door, burgers would sell out before dinner service. And so it became a real cult in New York. And as the brand expanded over the last few years, it has maintained that cult following. The people who know Emmy love Emmy, and they want to tell you all about their favorite pizza pizza or their favorite burger. And so again, I think cultural relevance, cult like following, great food and great service lead to folks wanting to be, follow the brand from a social standpoint.
What are the advantages and disadvantages being 29 locations and having one Instagram account as opposed to one in every market?
Yeah. It is the number one question I get from GMs every time I talk to GMs. And look, I think the
Because you're not
advantage.
running enough promotions in their local market?
Right. Yeah, that always
It makes
becomes the
sense.
conversation. But here's what I usually tell our folks. I think I'll start with the advantages. I'll move to the disadvantages and sort of our perspective as it relates to Emmy. I think the advantage is you're able to tell a more consistent brand story across the footprint. It allows you to punch above your weight and look bigger than you are from a partnership perspective. You're able to leverage that swagger in a more broad-based spectrum, which is great. The disadvantage is that it limits your ability to tell more local stories that are critical to the Emmy story. But the overarching challenge, as you know, and a lot of the folks who are listening to this, is growing a meaningful social following takes time, it takes energy, it takes investment, it takes infrastructure. And the way to really do it right is you need to have sort of folks on the ground and boots on the ground that can capture local stories that are of high quality and product. And at Emmy, we want to make sure that our GMs or operators are focused on running great restaurants, not being social media stars or influencers or trying to distract from the day-to-day of running a restaurant. And so for me is the challenge is how do we bridge the gap between having a national presence, if you will, or a large footprint um, scale, but also telling the stories of our people in our neighborhoods. And how we're solving for that is, influencers mostly, and making sure that we are working with them at a local level to tell those stories. And then the stuff that rises to the top, we can talk about it from a national standpoint. But yeah, I mean, if you want to do local right, you just need to have the right infrastructure to do it. And for us, we think influencers is a good way to sort of bridge the gap between the national and the local.
And how are you engaging local influencers?
Yeah, so I'll give you the corporate answer, which is we have an agency that helps manage that and
Sweet.
curate that for us.
Yep.
And so, but we also have, I would say on a daily basis, anywhere between 10 to 15 influencers that reach out to us directly and say, hey, we love Emmy or we want to, collab with you. What's also very interesting is we get a lot of influencers from abroad. So, when people come to visit New York, Emmy is a destination for them because of the accolades around the food. And so we do get a lot of interesting influencers from abroad that want to cover Emmy, as part of their trip to New York, which has been interesting.
So I heard you recently on a podcast talking about chief marketing officers needing to get out of the corporate office and spend more time inside of restaurants. Number one, why is that important? But what are the benefits that aren't obvious?
Yeah, look, I think it's easy to look at a P&L or look at a deck or look at a dashboard and make assumptions about the business in terms of trends or what's happening from KPI perspective, but nothing beats the ability to talk to a consumer, understand who walks in, how are they experiencing the brand, what are the conversations like in the dining room? What kind of energy do you have in the dining room? And so, from a consumer perspective, I think it keeps you honest, and it's a bit of a moment of reflection to make sure that what you think you're delivering on is actually happening at the restaurant level. The thing that might not be as obvious just because of the relationship between marketing and operations is it is great to just see how the restaurants are operating, being sort of boots on the ground and identifying like how does the crew describe the brand? How do they sell the brand? Are the programs that we're putting in place being executed well at the restaurant level? Are the communications clear? Is it easy to follow and turnkey? And so for me, I think the value is getting a sense of the consumer and listening to the voice of the consumer, to understanding if you're delivering on what you think you're delivering at a restaurant level, and three, the relationship and the partnership with operations, which is critical. I say this all the time. You can have the best marketing program in the world, the best Instagram in the world, the best promotion in the world, but where it matters is at the restaurant. And if you can't deliver on good service, good food, or execution, none of it matters, right? And so making sure that you are in lockstep from an ops standpoint, I think is critical. And you can get that out of a virtual meeting, looking at a deck or a dashboard, being on the ground makes a huge difference.
Can you bring us inside the Emmy squared pizza tech stack? Give
Sure.
us some stories, high level, good
Yeah.
partners.
Yeah, we're in a bit of a transitionary period right now, but our current stack is Toast Ordering, which you're quite familiar with. We've been with them for some time, and they've been a great partner to us. We use Bento Box for our web. We use Constant Contact for our email communications, and that is sort of as far as it goes. We're transitioning to custom build web and app solution that's powered by a new online ordering provider or a new CRM provider. Those conversations are ongoing, so I can't really get into
Sure.
too much details. But the headline is, pizza more than anything requires a best-in-class stack that allows you to, for consumer, order quickly without lots of fuss and clicking around. Communications that are very clear to the consumer to know where to click and where to go, and three, make information readily available to consumers. And so we want to make sure that as part of this transformation, we're delivering on those things to maximize our customer lifetime value, to reduce the numbers of days between visits, which is critical to the long-term impact of lifetime value, and that we have better touch points from a consumer standpoint. Little things like abandoned cart email. Do you want to reorder again? Like very tried and true things that are needed from an e-commerce perspective that a lot of times we lose sight of because you get too romanced by like a feature or a new technology like AI. And so you drive into that without thinking about the tried and true things that you need to have in place for you to be able to fully maximize your digital ecosystem.
How do you personally use artificial intelligence to be a better marketer?
I think from an efficiency standpoint, more task driven versus ideation. There's a lot of things that you can take off your plate, whether it's through data or small tasks like updating documents. That is how I'm currently leveraging this. A couple of the use cases we're thinking about for Emmy is an AI upsell engine that allows you to recognize what's on your cart and what's your previous order history to make recommendations. AI to be able to navigate people through an ordering experience. I'll give you an example. When you host a group of people, how many times do you go, how much food do I need? Like, what do I need to order? Do I order enough or not enough? The ability to give a prompt to a bot that says, I'm hosting these many people. Here's kind of what I need. Can you make a recommendation? Being able to leverage that, I think, is an interesting use case. And then from a customer relationship management perspective, as it relates to guest services. And so if you have a review or some feedback that we can speed our response time and taking care of customers through AI, I think it's a great way to merge the real world and the virtual world, because consumers are one answers now, not 48 hours from now. And oftentimes, they call 1-800 number or they go through a laborious survey. Like, how do you help reduce some of that? And so those for me are three interesting use cases to think about.
What does digital hospitality mean to you?
I would think about this in, I think, a couple ways. I think one, making everybody feel like a known customer, making sure that when you log into an account or you open a digital product, that it notices you and it recognizes you, but based on how you engage and transact. Two is about making sure that we deliver on our brand promise. And what I mean by that is lots of brands use templated apps, templated websites, that don't deliver on the essence of who you are. And so a better way to position this is, if you were only ordering online and that's the only way people are experiencing your brand, is that the best representation of you? And, oftentimes you open a website, you open an app, and it looks nothing like you, sounds nothing like you. It's
Mhm.
just an ordering engine. And so if you really want to deliver your brand across every touch point, you need to think about what is the language, what is the experience, how you're leveraging animation, what are the nudges through that experience. And we have lost sight of that, I think, as an industry for the sake of building, right? You're like, I really need an app, or I really need a website, or I really need X. You need to think about how your brand shows up, and is it delivering on that brand promise that you make to the customers that come into your restaurant every day. And so anyway, those are the two things that I would think about.
It's amazing. If you guys are watching this, please join our live show. We do one every Wednesday, every Friday. It's called Rising Tides Live. You can go to betheshow.media/rising tides to sign up. It's a chance for you to meet our community. We have people from all over the globe that are in marketing, in sales, restaurants, technology. They're storytellers. And more importantly, it's a chance for you to be a part of a live show. So please join us. You can follow me at Sean P. Walchef on Instagram. That's always the quickest way to get in touch with me, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn. Sergio, before I let you go, I need to hear about your personal tech stack. Are you an iPhone or Android user?
As a good marketer, I would say an Apple user across the board, from computer to iPad to headphones, mouse, and keyboards. If I were an IT person, I think the answer you would get is
There you
Android.
go.
And so that's oftentimes how you can tell if someone's a marketer or an IT guy.
That's a good distinction. I haven't thought of it that way, but now that you say it, it's very true. What version of iPhone do you have?
Newest, you got to stay up the
Do you
trend, make sure
do
the
you wait in
camera is
line? How
right.
do you get the newest? Are you waiting or what?
No, I like people, but not enough to sit in
Not
a
enough to
line for
wait in line?
that. Right. So everything's online, and yeah, it just gets delivered, which is great. It's painful to transfer to your new phone, but yeah, I try to do it every 2-3 years.
Do you prefer phone calls or text messages?
Calls every day. I'm a terrible response to text guy. In my mind, I'm like, oh, I've replied to this, and then you're like 2 days later, you forget about it. And so for me, I'd rather just do a quick call and go from there.
Do you leave voicemails?
If it's important enough, yes. If it's just like a call me back, I try not to. My favorite is when someone calls you and they say, "Hey, this is Sergio," but you've got the contact save, and it's like, of
Yeah.
course, I know it's you.
How many emails do you get a day?
Oof, too many, but I would say 75 to 100 a day is probably right.
How many do you enjoy reading?
Uh, I would say 20% of that, mostly, if it's an interesting marketing thing or a business related thing I enjoy. I'd rather do that at night, get through a lot of the emails, just, you have more headspace to be mindful and thoughtful about those. But yeah, you get a lot of spam. I'm sure you do, from
Oh,
whether
yeah.
it's a vendor or your email is out in the ether. And so I try to get back to everybody that makes an effort to reach out for a project or a pitch. But when you get that many, it's hard to get to everybody.
Zoom, Google Meets, or Teams?
Personally, Zoom. Professionally, we're a Google shop, and so we're Team Google on this end.
Okay. How do you listen to music?
Been a long time Spotify guy, but recently love the curation at Apple Music. And so
Really?
if you I'm a little bit of a history nerd. If you haven't checked out, the King of England has playlist, and he narrates sort of his thoughts around this around this playlist. It's just fascinating content. If you have a minute, I think it's called The King's Room on Apple Music,
Wow.
and it's just fascinating to hear. He opens with "Could You Be Loved" by Bob Marley, and so it's just a great um, piece of content. It's about an hour long, and so if you have time, I highly recommend.
That's awesome. What's your notification management? How do you deal with
Oof.
notifications?
Do not disturb most of the day or the focus mode. It allows just the important stuff to get through. I like to get, a couple breaks a day to just kind of catch up on the social stuff, but I try to focus from morning to early afternoon, and then around this time, allow the rest of it to come through.
Do you listen to podcasts, and which platform do you use?
Yeah, mostly sports podcast, and I use Apple Podcasts to get through that. And so everything from like Overdrive to some of the Barstool stuff. There's mostly, like I said, sports for me.
What's your favorite app that most people wouldn't expect?
Oof. Probably Lyft or Uber. I stopped driving when I left California in 18, and so I don't know. I probably have 3 to 4 thousand trips
Wow.
on those apps, and so anyway, everybody thinks or assumes, so you drive, you go everywhere, and I'm like, just Uber or Lyft, and so anyway, that's one for me.
Well, Sergio, I greatly appreciate your time. I know our audience does. This was a masterclass in marketing and branding. Thank you for what's the best way for people to keep in touch with you? LinkedIn?
Yeah, LinkedIn. They can find me at Sergio Perez on LinkedIn. And again, would love to have you or anybody watching or listening to give us a shot at Emmy Squared Pizza. We've got locations everywhere from New York to Nashville to Florida, Atlanta, Birmingham. We will soon be opening in LA. So we've got
Sweet.
in a couple of weeks, we'll be opening there. We'd love to have you
Amazing.
and
Yeah. We
check
go
out
up to
our,
LA a lot, so
yeah.
definitely stop
So,
by.
and we also ship nationwide through Goldbelly, and so if anybody's interested, they can find us there.
Amazing. Well, we appreciate you guys. Thank you, Sergio, for your time. As always, stay curious, get involved, and don't be afraid to ask for help. We'll catch you guys next episode.
Thanks.
And we are good. Let's see.